Hey everyone, Isabelle Fox here, and today we're going to be talking about the differences between private work versus brothel work versus agency work. There are a number of different models in the industry that you can operate under. These are the three main ones and most traditional options. There are actually a few other ones that I haven't listed here that aren't as common, but when you're first getting into the industry or if you're looking for a main source of operating, this is generally what most people will fall under. So the purpose of this video is to really help to inform you to make your own decision about which option might be best for you. I'm going to be running through some pros and cons of the different options. This is based on not only my own experience, but the experience of many other people that I've worked with and the things that they've reported about what they did like and didn't like in these different options. Now I'll tell you that I've actually worked in all of these options plus a few of the other ones, and I can't say that one is totally better than the other. It really depends on your place in the industry at the time, what you're looking to achieve, and what works best for you. So hopefully this will help to inform you a little more so that you can make your own decision. Let's start with private work. Now, I categorize private work as being when you advertise yourself and manage your own phone, so you get your own clients and you arrange your own bookings. Firstly, let's go through some of the pros of private work. Personal and direct contact with your clients. This can actually be a positive and a negative, but I've put it as a pro here as you are able to create a relationship with your own client on your own terms, and you can contact them directly and work things out directly based on what you do and don't want to do. Can set your own fees and rates. You don't have anybody else telling you what you can and can't charge. You can just choose exactly how much you want to charge your clients. You get to be your own boss when you work privately, you get to work at your own hours, and you're also able to self-manage business progression and expansion. So what I mean by that is that you are totally responsible for whether or not you grow your business, which can actually be a really positive thing. When you're working under somebody else's business model, you don't have control over this area, which means that you're really at the mercy of that person's desire to grow the business. So if you're business-minded and you want to see yourself increase your rates, you want to see your client list expand or perhaps get better in quality, then you're able to handle this yourself. You get one-on-one interaction with your clients, and this is actually becoming a more popular method for clients when booking, and this is due to the history of clients booking through agencies or brothels and not getting the exact service or girl that they were hoping for, or experience rather. So it's becoming more popular that they go to the more private option with people managing themselves. Also, that's becoming more popular for sake of discretion. They don't have to walk into a parlor. And also too, because a lot of people are starting to choose private work. So there's more variety and options in private work than perhaps there has been in the past. You get to screen and select your own clients based on your own individual preferences. Now, some business models like agencies and brothels will let you choose the clients you do and don't see. And obviously you never should be forced to see any client that you don't want to be. However, if you're screening your own clients, you have a lot more control over this process. If you work for an agency, you might not be able to get all the information that you want. And if you're working in a brothel, it can be harder to turn down clients. Politically, it can cause some problems with management. So when you work privately, you have total control over this. You get to create your own persona and brand. I definitely see this as a pro, but it is also a big responsibility and quite a lot of work. And it is where you will suffer most if you don't get it right. I've still listed it as a pro because I think that it is a really wonderful thing to learn and harness and can bring a lot of business success, but it does come with some cons as well. Some of the cons of private work. There are generally larger upfront costs for setup and also ongoing advertising costs. There is a relationship between how much you spend generally and how much you make. Not all the time, but if you put more money and time and energy into your profile when you're setting it up, generally you end up with a better quality result, which is just really a model for life in general. The more work you put in, the better the return. You have to deal with sex pests and time wasters. If you've been in the industry, if you've ever managed your own phone, you know that this is no small feat to deal with. It can be really hard work and really frustrating. Generally, when you're a private worker, your schedule is more of an on-call sort of nature, which can happen when you work for escort agencies. However, with escort agencies, you generally pick rosters rostered shifts that you choose to work, and then you're unavailable outside of those hours. When you're a private worker, even if you decide I'm only going to work Monday to Friday this week, if you don't get any work or enough work in those days and then work comes through on the weekend, you'll generally find that you need to take that work to make up for the work that you didn't get during the week when you were available. If you're a private worker, depending on your own setup, often you won't have a place of work to actually go to, which can be a problem if you're, say, living at home, living with a partner, living with people who don't know what you do, and you have to come up with covers all the time for why you're not out of the house and things like that. So this makes your cover story a little bit more complicated. Everything needs to be set up in your own name when you work privately. So depending on what you're setting up and what you're having to manage, this can increase your privacy problems. You only get one stream of clientele to your profile when you work privately. And what I mean by that is that when you work at an agency or a brothel, they have a larger stream of clients generally coming in because there's more variety for clients to choose from. So for instance, if you're in a brothel, if a client comes in to book another girl one day, he might see you and decide to actually book you. So you've benefited from the fact that he's come in to book somebody else. When you're working privately and managing just a profile, you only have the stream of clients who have decided to contact that profile. So it means that you have less clients available to you. It's also your own responsibility to troubleshoot any problems that come along. And it doesn't matter what you do in life, there will always be some sort of problems that you have to deal with along the way. But when you work privately, it is totally just up to you to handle each and everything that comes along, which can be really draining and hard work. Further pros of private work are that you get to learn valuable skills in business that can be applied to other areas of work and life. You don't learn more quickly in any other way than when you have to do something yourself, when you have practical hands-on experience. So when you're managing yourself, you'll learn a lot really fast, and you'll generally be able to apply those skills to other areas of work that you might choose to do in the future, and also other areas of life. Of course, you get to keep your entire fee, which is really helpful. You have no commissions or part payments. However, remember you are covering ongoing costs, so you never entirely keep all the money. You still have to pay for things out of that income that you make as well. You can network with other independent escorts who may also be like-minded. Now, you actually have to go out of your way to do this. It's not like you're just sitting around meeting people or in an environment where you're crossing paths with other workers. But if you make the effort to go and do that, it can be really wonderful to meet those people. You can see fewer clients because you're making more money. So you avoid at times that high quantity nature of work. And again, you get to communicate directly with your clients, so you can actually offer specials, bonuses, things like that. When you work for an agency or a parlor, you're not really able to offer a special unless it's just a special on your own payment, which is generally more of a brothel model. For an agency, they will have charged the client up front, so you can't just offer them a discount or get in touch with them to offer them a discount or follow up for their birthday or something like that. So you can build more value when you work privately because you really have that one-on-one communication. Some further cons is that it can be quite lonely and isolating. Just sitting by your phone waiting for clients to come in, not having any contact with other girls, only having contact with the clients that you see can be really lonely. And most people who I speak to who have worked privately have really suffered from this and suffered to manage their work-life balance because of that. There's no in-person support network that's readily accessible as easily. Now, there are still networks within the industry, places set up that you can go to for support or help, but you have to, again, externally access that yourself. So you don't just have somebody who you can call, you don't have management downstairs, an agency staff member on the phone. Most of the time you're alone, and if something happens in the moment, you don't really have anybody to turn to. You're responsible for your own security and client screening. You must organize your own discrete method of payments, which again is difficult if you don't have a company set up and you need to set things up in your own name. If you work in Victoria, legally to work independently, you need to register for an SWA number, which means that your personal information will be kept on a record. Then of course you also have the managing of the double life, having a second phone. So you have to do that consistently. If you go out with your friends, you have to decide if you take your phone and try and do it discreetly or if you leave it at home and miss bookings. So that can be difficult to manage as well. Now, I currently work privately, and it's something that I've tended towards at the more experienced end of my career. And like I said, it's becoming a more popular method. There are definitely a lot of pros, but there are also a lot of cons, so you need to weigh up both of them. Moving on to brothel work. Now, brothels are parlors where there is a legal premises for a client to come to you and see you at a premises. Generally, there are a larger variety of girls. They will come into the parlor, there'll be an intro room of some kind, they'll meet all the girls, and then they'll choose which person they want to stay with. Some of the pros of brothel work are that it's easy and cost effective to start. All you really need is one outfit and a doctor's certificate to get started. And actually, a lot of brothels even have outfits that you can borrow. So sometimes you don't even need to have clothes. You can just walk in with a medical certificate and you can begin. The benefit of brothel work is that you can work on shift. So you can actually plan around a schedule. You avoid the whole where are you going to go for work. You actually have a place that you can leave to and then come home from at the end of the day. So that can be helpful for a cover story as well. You're generally sitting around with other people who are working too, so you get to network with them and learn off their experience. You've got on-site management and personnel that can help organize bookings for you and also provide security. The clients are totally sourced for you, so you're literally sitting there and the clients come through the door and then hopefully they choose you depending on how that whole situation works out. So there's no advertising that you need to do on your part, no profile that you have to create. You literally just sit there and the clients come to you. Now, even though high volume can have its downsides, there's also a huge amount of upside in doing high volume work in that you get a lot of practice and experience in a short amount of time. Often I have people come to me who haven't worked at all before and they're wondering where they should start. And I will generally recommend, if they can find a good quality brothel that has good referrals, starting in a brothel because it's zero commitment up front and you get a lot of experience in a short period of time. I personally learned a lot in a brothel, which is where I started, and I was able to apply all that experience to my later areas of my career. Some of the cons are that you will be sitting around and potentially not getting paid even though you're at work, which is really frustrating. If you're privately working, you're still working when you're managing your phone or waiting for your bookings, but you have a lot more flexibility and you will actually get paid every time you're with a client. Whereas at a brothel, you'll need to go in generally and sit for an 8-hour shift and you won't get paid unless the client books you. Not all management is very flexible, so you'll generally be locked into set shifts. Sometimes the environment in brothels aren't very positive. It can be quite negative and competitive at times. Now, this depends on what brothel you're in, but that's the general consensus on what it's like to work in a brothel, especially when you're new in the environment. Not all management is good quality. They're often secretive, manipulative, and unprofessional. We all have those horror stories of how management hasn't handled our clients well or treated us very well. Again, you can find brothels that don't do this, but that's the general consensus of what it can be like. You've got less control over increasing clientele onto the premises. This is dependent on the market and management. So what I mean by that is that how much work is available is generally based on how many clients are coming in and out. Now, that could just be how busy it is at any given time of the year, or it could be how savvy management are at getting more clients in, and each brothel is different. It can be quite exhausting. You need higher volume and to see more clients to make more money. For the pros, you have that one-on-one, face-to-face intro where you're really able to sell your personality to try and get the booking. When you have a private or an agency situation, you don't have that added benefit, and there is a lot of benefit in being able to sell yourself to a client. When you're working privately, you only have your profile to sell from. You don't get to have that in-person effect. Depending on the setup of a brothel, you may actually be able to see the client before meeting them. So most brothels will have an intro room, and generally there will be a way to peek your head around the corner or look in a camera, so that helps with privacy issues. Valuable experience is gained with seeing more clients and getting experience with more variety. So I kind of touched on this before, but not only do you see a lot of clients make a lot of money in a short period of time, but you also get to learn a lot about different sorts of people, because generally a brothel will attract a very wide variety of clientele. Whereas if you work privately, you'll tend to get a more similar sort of client coming to you every time. You're able to draw on knowledge and support from fellow workers in between bookings, which can be really helpful. You can step in and out of the industry very easily, so the minimal commitment that's required can be really helpful. You can literally just stop working one day, and then the next day you can decide I want to work again, and you go back in. And of course, there's no admin work or follow-up. Once you finish your shift at the brothel, that's it, work is done. Cons. Management can be really protective of their clientele, sometimes more protective than they are of you, the worker, which is not very good. You can be more prone to female health problems due to that high volume of work. There's less privacy due to contact with more fellow workers and clientele, so you have no control over who walks in and out of the building, and there's generally more people. And you also don't have any control over what other girls are working, so you never know who might be there, who you may possibly know in your personal life. But also remember that they're probably hiding the same things, so that's not always a massive problem. You've got less room to scale your business as your rates are set. You have less control over the management of your own clientele, and you don't have any ability to maintain regular contact with your clients to upsell, offer specials, and offer value outside of set hours. Most management frown down very much on you having personal contact with your client because, like I said, they're afraid that you're going to steal their clients. So that's an overview of some of the pros and cons of working in a brothel. I found overall that my experience in a brothel was extremely helpful and beneficial to set up my further career, but it definitely didn't come without its cons. Lastly is agency work. Generally, an agency has a website or some form of management where the client can contact the agency and get the agency to set them up with a meet with somebody. And most of the time, agencies don't have a premises, so it's all escorting, where you go to see your client at a hotel or another arranged location. I've worked for a number of agencies, probably spent my shortest amount of time working with agencies. Again, there were a number of pros and cons. So firstly, with the pros, generally the rates are higher with agency work than brothels. Not all agencies, but generally it is a higher rate. Depending on how the agency is set up, you can stay at home in between clients. So the way it generally works is you'll have your rostered shift. Some agency models have an office that you are supposed to sit at the office and wait for bookings. Other agencies will let you stay at home and they'll just contact you when it's time to go out for a booking. Clients are sourced and managed for you. There's security and a check-in procedure or a point of contact. They're able to accept FPOS payments for you, which means that it won't be in your own name. This is really helpful for when you want to do extensions. There are privacy benefits due to not having an online profile or sitting in a brothel interacting with multiple fellow workers and clients. So if you feel very, very adverse to having any photo of yourself anywhere or meeting a lot of people who might recognize you, then an agency setup could really work for you. Some of the cons. There is very minimal transparency about how busy the agency actually is, and also minimal transparency about everything else that's going on. If you're just sitting at home, the only contact that you have is a phone call or texting with a staff member who's on at the time. You don't know if it's busy, you don't know if they're sending your clients away, you don't know if they're prioritizing other girls over you, so that can be a real downside. Again, similar to private work, agency work can mean that you have an on-call style or shift work. Even though you have your set rostered shifts, they will still sometimes contact you to try to get you to work. So due to that, you will at times have to be available when you aren't actually making money. So if you're sitting on roster because you said that you're available and you're not getting any work, that can be really annoying. It can be very solo or lonely work when you aren't interacting with fellow workers, especially for the agency models where you do sit at home. You often need to meet clients in public places if you're going to hotels. Not all agencies actually have proper security measures. So they might have a check-in, check-out on the phone. Not all of them are very good at actually upholding that professionally. And most agencies I have worked with didn't have drivers or actual security. So you're still quite alone. And if something were to go wrong, there isn't really a lot that they could do. Further pros, however. In Victoria, you don't need an SWA number, which is the same for a brothel. The agency and the brothel will have their own SWA number that you can work under, so you can legally work without actually having to give your name out. Similar to a brothel, there can be a higher volume of clientele due to a variety of workers being available. Clients can be referred to you from other girls. So again, you don't just have your one source of clientele coming from your profile, you've got multiple clients coming to see multiple people, which increases your chances at times of getting more work. Some of the cons are that you have to entrust client screening to others. You don't really know how much screening has been done. Even if people tell you that they've done XYZ, there isn't really any way of you knowing that unless that particular agency has a very transparent business model, and most of them don't. Like brothels, agencies are known for having management that is quite inflexible and uncaring, and often just putting their own wallet before your well-being. So that's something to be aware of. All right, guys, I really hope that's been helpful for you. I always tell people to do your own research. Knowledge really is power, and we have a lot of resources available now. I highly recommend going to check out redfiles.com.au. It's a sex worker only online information platform, and you can actually network with other sex workers there. When I have people come to me wanting recommendations specifically for brothels and agencies, I generally tell them to go and try to find people working within their area who can give them experienced feedback. As always, if there's anything else I can do to help you, contact me on isabelle@foxgirls.com.au.